Welcome everyone to Theory Lunch. Today we have one of our own, Goran, who's going to talk about communication in noisy radio networks.
Thanks, Roy. So, today's topic, the communication in radio networks. It's a joint work with Karen, Bernard, Ellis, and Jason, and it's in partial fulfillment of the speaking skills requirement. So let's start. What's the story? So, our good old friend, Farmer John, has like a big farm. And he's an IT enthusiast and wants to use like some electronic devices, some sensors to help him farm efficiently and effectively. So he goes down to the store and buys a sensor that has like, let's say, moisture detector that can, measure some important soil properties. Okay, so obviously, he doesn't want to run down a cable through half of his farm, so he installs a little radio on it and puts it somewhere in the middle of the farm such that it is in the radio range of the house. So, also clearly, since, one sensor doesn't do much, he bought a couple of friends for him and put them like randomly scattered them around. Fine. But now the problem is the following. The farm is kind of big. So it's not really natural to think everything is going to be within the range of the house. So what actually, if you actually look what's like the graph, who can communicate with who, it would look something like this. So basically, like let's say this one cannot really communicate with the house. So if he has some important information he wants to relay to Farmer John, he would need to use this sensor to relay his data upon. And this is kind of the main motivation of our story. So we have like a bunch of little dumb sensors, like a flock or a drone or something, some like dumb little devices, and they want to achieve some global property. Broadcast a message, learn something, find the leader elect, or something like that. But they're very dumb, like they don't even know who is connected to them. Who can they even talk to? So can we find like some simple protocol that's very oblivious? You only need to you don't need to know much about the network at all. You just need to know, like, let's say, the size and the diameter or something like that. And can you do this simple protocol that eventually achieve this big global property? That's our story. So now, let's jump in. Let's try to formalize this a little bit. A model, or how can we actually communicate in this, like, mathematical model? So what I'm going to do today, I'm going to give a sequence of models that are going to lead up to our actual model. This is kind of a pre-model because it like builds upon some prior work, and this is like the first and the most important model everything is going to work upon. So you can focus now because if this doesn't make sense, nothing probably will. So we have our network that's abstracted as an undirected graph G. So why is it undirected? So, okay, just before, so these are like the sensors, and the edges mean that two sensors or nodes can communicate. Why is it undirected? Well, the reason is like they have equally powerful radios. This one can talk to one, the other one can talk to the first one. Fine. Now, the communication occurs in synchronous rounds. Well, you may think this makes it simpler. This is actually how it's done in practice. Because of various like effects, they actually try to make it synchronous because it has some benefits. So think about it like every second, nodes that want to send packets and receive packets. Good. In these synchronous rounds, nodes can either choose to listen or they can broadcast. So let's repeat it now, and let's put the formal rules here. So yeah, nodes either listen and broadcast in each round. Rule number one. Rule number two, really natural. Nodes have to send the same packet to all their neighbors once they're broadcasting. Makes sense because it's a radio. You can only do like, you cannot really choose I want to send one packet to this neighbor and one packet to this other neighbor. No, you can only send like one to everyone. And the third and the most nuanced and hard rule, and the one that causes most problems, is the following. A node will receive a message if and only if A, it is listening, and B, exactly one of its neighbors is broadcasting. So, we have like three pictures. Can you see the light here? This one is bad, so this node that's listening won't receive anything because nobody of his neighbor is sending. This one will because exactly one is sending, and this one will not because two of his neighbors are sending. So, you'll just hear some random noise because of interference. Fine. Okay, now when we set the model, let's gain some intuition for it. So let's figure out how would you do some simple algorithm on a line. Let's say you want to do broadcasting. That means you have a packet and so let's say they do now. Here, let's make it simple. Let's say they do, and then later, you present some tools to make them not known. But they know everything now.
I can't go, remember the 1 to n? Time 1, node 1 transmit, and then at time, and everybody else listens, and then time 2, node 2 transmits, everybody else listens.
Yeah, you propagate a wave, let's say.
Yeah.
That's for one packet, but you have two of them, right? When you start transmitting the second one.
Ah,
Well, I say you start transmitting the second one at time 3.
yeah.
That's kind of the claim. It's very simple. So basically what you do the following. You divide the nodes into groups of 3, and you propagate these waves. So node 1 will go, basically a packet will get forwarded by the wave, it will get carried along, and it's all good. Just I want you to note, let's say if you divided them into groups of 2, this would not work. Note that. Why? Because if you have 2 of them broadcasting, they would interfere in the middle one. So, bad. Okay, let's go on. Let me tell you about the most important thing in radio networks. It's called the decay primitive. It's a primitive that takes care of all the interferences such that you don't need to worry about much. Fine. So this is what it does. Let's suppose you're giving this radio network, and some subset of nodes, any subset of nodes, is marked as active. We call this the active nodes, right? Now, I want to find a short primitive that's oblivious, doesn't know the network, does whatever it wants, does something, right? And after which, everybody who has a neighboring active node will receive a message. So in particular, you can see this example, like this one has 2 active nodes, and he will receive correctly a message. It will not be interfered, right? So basically, the crux of this technique is it takes care of interference. Even though you have like a bunch of neighbors, it will correctly choose one of them and forward that message along it. You cannot really choose which neighbor you get the message from. That would be impossible. But you can definitely get from some of them, which you cannot choose. Fine. So let me put the formal requirements down. So, same thing as I said, except now we're a little bit more specific in that the protocol takes log delta rounds, where delta is the maximum degree. And there is like little notion this happens with 50% probability at each of the neighbors, but we ignore that. It's never a problem. It had some artifacts, but basically you can ignore that for the rest of the talk. So basically just imagine that it happens deterministically and we get everything right. Fine. So now, let me ask you a question with 10 seconds or so. How would you use this primitive to do a one-to-all broadcast? So you have some network, one of the nodes has a packet, you want to forward it to everyone else. How to do it?
Sorry, the length is just the number of records on the primitive.
That's right. So everybody does it in parallel for a cost of 1 round.
So, Goran, is the set of active nodes known to the...
Yes, so the only thing that the nodes know are, am I active or am I not active?
But the protocol doesn't need to know the active set.
I mean, a node has to know if you are active, right? It doesn't need to know the number, it doesn't need to know what's your neighbors, who are their neighbors, it doesn't need to know everything except a sensor has to know, am I active? So that's, in that case, that's what you need to know. Good. So yeah, I'm just going to answer. So what you do is pretty simple. In the beginning, only the source node is active, and then once their neighbors receive it, everybody that's adjacent to it is active, and then at time k, everybody that's, k log delta, everybody who is like at distance k is active. So everybody who has the message is active. That's the idea. And after diameter times log delta many rounds, you get exactly what you need. It will spread through the entire diameter. Fine. So let's work on this. Let's talk about this broadcasting protocol. What's prior work has been done? What's up, Raj?
Do you need to, because this only has like constant probability of success, do you need to amplify this in every round?
No, but you need to amplify in the end. So basically, I'll get to this.
Okay.
Fine. So broadcasting is actually surprisingly non-trivial because of this interference. When you use the decay lemma, yeah, it can work, but you still have this notion of proving the black box of decay lemma, which I will not do now, but we can do it after the talk if you're still interested and you have time. Fine. So, the first protocol for broadcasting in radio network was done by Bar Yehuda, Goldreich, and Itai in 87, and it's exactly what I said, diameter log delta, many rounds. That's how it takes. Because of this 50% probability, it has this artifact that you have to amplify it in the end, but you completely ignore it. Like, for this purposes of this talk, like it doesn't happen. It's very easy to deal with by some, concentration bounds. Okay, so, it was actually that protocol for broadcast stood there for 30 years as being the best, until some very exciting work by our own Bernard and David Weitz in 16 killed a log factor, a log D factor from it, which is actually a big deal in this setting. So log factors actually matter a lot here. And so what actually happened, for like history's sake, they had a log n factor here, and these guys, Sumai and Davis, killed the log n factor and won some best paper award because of it. So yeah, So okay, I'm telling you about these two protocols. They are specific because...
How come killing a log factor didn't win the award, but killing a log factor did win the award?
Yeah, it's strange, right?
Let's not go there.
I think Bernard and David, they don't like that either. You're right. So, these protocols are like specific because, not specific, good because they do not require the network to know everything. The network doesn't know the topology, the network doesn't know much. On the other end of the spectrum is the protocol where you know the entire topology. The nodes can, collaborate before the protocol starts, so-called, right? And if you have this assumption, then you can have like an optimal, let's say, protocol that takes only order delta rounds. Optimal in the sense, well, you obviously cannot broadcast below diameter time. You obviously cannot broadcast less than diameter. So this is optimal up to this constant factor. Good. It was done in 05 by Gassienietz, Peleg, then Shen. And that's all good. However, it has one drawback that led us to our next model that we introduced in a recent paper. It's called the noisy radio network model. The problem with that optimal orderly algorithm is that it uses something what I call a timing technique. So if you remember that line example, when you have, broadcast, so you divide into groups of 3 and then you make these waves that propagate, all fine. I call this a timing technique because it's, if a packet drops off a wave, it has to wait for the next one. The problem it does is you have to synchronize a lot of things and it's fragile in practice. Like, it's kind of hard to do it in practice. You ideally don't want those timing techniques. So, to have like, to make a little bit of a more, practical algorithms, a recent paper introduced so-called noisy radio network models. They work exactly as before, except now, even if a message is correctly sent, it has a probability of 50% of being dropped. So, imagine this, so in this picture, like, a message is properly sent to this node by this one, but with 50% it gets dropped. Or 50% it will get correctly delivered. Well, good. Basically the same thing, except you have some little bit of randomness, which makes sense because it's like a real world. You can, often, you cannot really say the network is deterministic. You have to get some possibility that something might going to be messed up. Okay, and now if you look at this noisy radio network model and you look what can you do in broadcast. Let's revisit first the old optimal algorithm of Gaussian-Peleg action, and that takes like order d rounds. If you try to run it vanilla in the noisy setting, you will actually incur a log n factor. The reason for this is that this algorithm uses this kind of waves of length log n, and once a node gets dropped from a wave, it will need to wait log n time to find the next one, and it will be dropped from a wave every, once in 2 times, right? So often. It cannot really work. So, like some prior work that I was actually a part of, so like Sensor Hero, Alice, Bernard, and me, basically did some work and modified it a little bit such that it still remains order D. Fine, okay. But today, what's up, Alice? What's up, Pedro?
My question is, in the 05 paper, they needed to know the network. Does your paper also need to know the network?
Yes. If you don't know the network, then you have that, d log delta over log diameter thing, right? So yes, you do. But we'll get how the other protocols compare. Fine. So, okay, but today we will not be talking, the most of the talk now when we introduced all the preliminaries we need, will be focused not on broadcasting, but on arbitrary protocols. So how do you convert an arbitrary protocol to the noisy radio network model? Here it is. So, you're given, let's formalize this, you're giving an arbitrary big T round protocol in the faultless setting that can use all these timing techniques and, make leverage of the deterministic nature of the original network. And you want to convert it, simulate it in the faulty setting. How do you do it? So you're going to suffer some multiplicative blowup factor, alpha. And you're going to have some concentration bump because it's random. It's a non-deterministic network, right? So now the question is, what's the minimal multiplicative blow-up that you need to suffer? That's the entire question. Now, in order to start talking about it, let's talk about a naive solution. One naive solution would be, well, what you can do, you take whatever the original protocol did, and you repeat the round multiple times. And if one of those messages pass, everything is going to work, and everything has to pass in all the rounds, and that's all good. The number of times you need to repeat a message is log n. So if you repeat it log n times, and the protocol is not super exponentially big, it's not exponentially big, it all works. However, the problem is that log n, as we noticed before, is a big deal in this area, because the bounds are tight, and log n, that's kind of all that you care about in the end. It's kind of a big deal here, and it actually has some practical implications. So can we do better than log n? Can we do an order delta, delta again being the maximum degree, or order log delta? So imagine you have like a constant degree expander, or anything constant degree for that matter. If this is possible, you could have a constant blow-up and a constant blow-up, or even better, constant blow-up. And that's actually the main brunt of the talk, or the most technical part of the talk that I want to focus on. The answer is yes, and this is how we're going to proceed from now on. First, let's review the decay primitive, but now in this radio network model. Let's say, how does it compare? Then I'm going to show a short little mini lecture, and by mini lecture, I here mean a standalone probability fact that might be of independent interest, even if you don't follow the entirety, or even if you didn't follow the rest of the talk, this might be of independent and interesting to you. Using this, cute little probability fact, I'm gonna tell you how to do a delta polling or delta simulator. Good. Then I'll introduce another mini lecture that talks about throttling, also a standalone probability fact. And using those two ideas, as well as decay, we're going to find a polling log delta, polling log again simulator. It's not all that we wanted, but it's good because it doesn't have a log n. It has a log delta, but log n, I guess, much smaller than log n. Exponentially smaller than log n. Fine. And we're going to conclude after that. So let's start. Let's start with the decay primitive. Let's remind ourselves what did we say about it. I basically copy-pasted whatever I said before about it. And the thing I want you to note is it still works in the noisy setting. So it's so oblivious, it's so like doesn't require anything that it just works out of the box. Again, we won't prove it, we might prove it in the end, but the only thing you need to know, it works out of the box.
Did you explain that before or
Nope.
not?
Nope.
I thought so not.
Nope, it's a black box. It would, I mean, we can explain it in the end. Currently, I think it would detract from the main technical difficulties. This is like, 30-year-old work. You just use it as a black box. As this is actually all that you need, this statement. So you can internalize the statement. But now, I'll give you some time to try to work out the following problem. Like 30 seconds or so. This is called the knowledge sharing primitive. Every node has some unique message, or some message, and it wants to tell all of its neighbors about its message. How do you use this primitive in order to achieve this? And I kind of just put a solution down there so you can internalize it. I'll give you some time. How to knowledge share with all your neighbors in delta polynomial delta rounds. I'll give you a bit of time. So basically the algorithm is pretty simple. You run the decay, and you make random nodes active. So basically each node will flip a coin, and the probability 1 over delta, it will become active. And now, when you have a node, so when you fix a node and its neighbor, the probability it will not be active and that its neighbor will be active is constant, is 1 over delta times a constant. So after delta rounds, the expected number of times it will happen is 1. And you add a log delta so that concentration kicks in and it all works out, right? So the only thing you need to remember so far is that it's simple. And that after delta polygon delta rounds, you can actually share with all your neighbors up to some probability of 50% that we don't care about. But has to be there for technical reasons. So, good. Knowledge sharing works in delta, polynomial delta. Fine. So now let's step out into a standalone probability fact that I call the conditional progress. The setting is the following. Let's say you have a graph of maximum degree delta. Fine. Initially, you have a number, 0, written in each one of the nodes. And now we do the following advancement of the numbers. You have a bunch of rounds. In each round, first you look, are you the smallest in your neighborhood? Is there anyone smaller in your neighborhood? So if there are nobody who is smaller, you flip a coin, 50%. If the coin turns out heads, you advance by 1. If that's the setting, what's the amount of time until one fixed node, which I call node 1, what's the amount of time until node 1 gets the number t written in it? And I want the answer in terms of delta and t. Oh yes, exactly. So what's the probability that it has a number t written in it? I'll give you 30 seconds to think about it a little bit. Well, you can even think about a star. How long does the middle node need to advance? Well, anyway, it's actually surprisingly low. When I first thought about the problem, I was like, yeah, probably t delta, but it's actually not. It's much better than this. It's t log delta, which is surprising. So basically, the claim is kind of the following. even if you kind of depend, even if a bunch of nodes are bounding your, like stopping your progress, the dependence on this number of nodes that are killing your progress is very, very small. It's only logarithmic. Like, not sure how intuitive it is, but it's true. And we can prove it also in the end if you have time and you're interested. But not so hard at all, actually. So let me just ask you now, what if you are bounded by your 2-hop neighborhood? So you can only advance if you're, so the same graph, delta, max, and degree, but your 2-hop neighborhood is bounding your progress. What happens then? And the answer is simple. Well, the number of neighbors in the number of 2-hop neighbors is delta squared. It goes in the log factor, so it's like log delta squared. Factor of 2 goes out. Who cares? All good. Fine. So this is it. This is like the, let's call it the conditional progress lemma. We're going to use it. Now, when we have these two techniques in place, the conditional progress and the decay, we are ready to present the delta polylog delta simulator. But after I show you one little technicality that I call the virtual round. So remind ourselves what is the main problem. So what are we even doing? We want to simulate an original protocol from the noiseless setting in the noisy setting. So now I propose the following. Each node keep tracks of how many rounds of the original protocol did it successfully simulate. Basically, it means up to what round did it receive all the messages it needs to. Good. Call this the virtual round and denote by A of V. A virtual round of the node V. Now, the algorithm is the following. You will knowledge share your virtual round with all your neighbors. You have a question?
I was going to ask if this is just an analytical technique or if it's something that the nodes actually do, but it looks like you're answering that.
Sorry, one?
Oh,
yeah. Okay,
yeah,
that's
so
fine.
It looks like it's the second one. Is it realistic for a node to know how many rounds it's simulated correctly? Because doesn't the node then have to know whether or not its message got to its neighbor?
No, it only needs to know the original protocol for itself. Right? So basically, think about it.
Oh, when you say correctly, you don't mean with respect to noise, you mean with respect to randomness in the algorithm?
No, so in the noisy setting, a message can either be dropped or correctly received. Because the messages are like big, like a kilobyte, so you can always have enough hashes and headers to like not have corruptions. If there is corruption, so you either have correct or drop. Fine. Imagine an original protocol, like you're getting the original protocol where you're getting a broadcast, right? You're waiting for you to receive the message. You definitely know did you receive the message or not, right? Let's put it this way. So let's say if you have a protocol that needs to receive 20 messages, it will know it received the first 5, and then you know how many messages did you receive, and do you need to send the next one? That's kind of an implicit assumption that says shove under the rug, but actually it's not a big deal because of some reasons you can convert the protocol to such things.
Okay.
If that is your question.
Okay.
But you can assume that the node knows its protocol. I mean, the node definitely knows its protocol, but you can also assume it knows in what order is it supposed to receive and send the messages out. That's actually the assumption that you use here implicitly. But true, it is an assumption that I try to shove under the rug. Okay, so basically, one more time. What's the idea? You knowledge share your virtual round with all your neighbors, and then you help the least advanced neighbor. So let's say I have a node, I'm at time t, but I see, oh my god, there is a neighbor at time 5. Let's help him. That's the idea, and we repeat some number of times. So now I want you to realize that the analysis is pretty simple. If there is a node who is the minimum among its neighbors, everyone will do his round, everyone will help him. So, what do? If you're the minimum in your neighborhood, you will succeed with 50% probability. everyone will help you. And those, when they help you, the message that you need will actually go through with 50% probability. Fine. This is kind of exactly the setting of the conditional progress lemma. If you're the minimum, you advance with constant probability. Fine. So how many times do you need to reach round t to reach the final round t? Well, t log delta rounds by the absolutely same argument. So, t log delta rounds, you repeat the knowledge sharing primitive, and you get t delta polylog delta. Fine, good. And that's it. That's how you do the delta polylog delta simulator. If you can define these virtual rounds, which I claim you can. Now, let's introduce another idea that will lead us to the polylog delta log again simulator, the better one. So, let me ask you a question before we proceed on. You have n numbers. Each one of them is originally 0. In every round, you increase them with 50% probability, you increase them by 1. What is the expected discrepancy of the entire set of numbers after t rounds? What is discrepancy is the difference between the maximum in the sequence and the minimum in the sequence. What is the expected difference after big t rounds? I'll give you a little bit of time. As usual.
Order of square root.
Sorry?
In order of square root of t.
That's right. Times square root log, which don't care about. Yeah, why order square root of t? Because that's the variance, actually. If you consider only one of them, the variance will be square root of t, so that's what you're going to expect. And the square root log n just deals with the n of them, but we don't care about it. Okay, fine. That's a big number. Like this is like poly n, so this is, if you take t as the total number of rounds, this is kind of a huge number, so you don't want that. If you care about the discrepancy. So now let's introduce something that I call the throttling. So what are we going to do? Let's say when you leave this guy's run, at round r, you expect a node to be, you expect a value to be about r over 2. Good. Like if you let the run and tell them r because you advance 50% probability, you expect a particular node to be about at around r over 2. Now let's throttle them. So basically, we will never let them go over r over 10. So that's much slower than r over 2. So we will throttle them manually. We will not let them pass beyond this mark. The question is, what is the discrepancy now? I'll just give you some time to think. No need to answer. I'll give you the answer in 10 seconds. Timer. Okay. So the number of rounds is log n. But the discrepancy is log n. We can prove it. But we will probably have time to prove one of all these facts. You can choose which one is most interesting, whatever. The one who gets the first question. But yeah, so the discrepancy will be log n. And this allows us to present the log n, log delta, polylog n, polylog delta simulator. Now, what do? We do the same algorithm as before. Like, so basically you want to knowledge share your virtual rounds and find out who's the least advanced related. But we throttle them. So at time r, nobody can pass beyond r over 10. They're throttled. The discrepancy is small. But now when the discrepancy is small, you can do a binary search over it. A binary search over a size of log n. So you only need log n iterations of it. And how do you do it? Well, let me just shove a bunch of details under the rug, and the main idea is like, well, you do the binary search, you're only interested who is below the threshold that you're searching for. So basically, you want to find out, is there an active node in your neighborhood? And we have a primitive for it. So that's exactly how you do the binary search. You just use the decay primitive. That works here, right? What's up, Jeff?
But this requires knowing each node having some global view of the other nodes?
Oh no, it only needs, they collaboratively do the binary search.
Yeah.
I mean, it's you don't need to know the network, you only need to know what's the round, and you can keep a track on that, right?
You need so you need the round, the virtual round of every node in the network.
Oh no.
Just in your neighborhood.
No, you don't need any of it. Binary search will tell you binary search is the method that you use to learn the least advanced node in your neighborhood. You do not know it, you will invoke binary search, and you will use it with decay in order to find the least advanced round in your neighborhood. Good.
I don't really understand how binary search can work in this context.
Oh, you can. Oh, I'll tell you this thing. You need to. It doesn't work easily, but you can. This is what you're gonna do. If a node is gonna be minimum in its 2-hop neighborhood, you will make everyone else be subdued by this node and just help this one. That's what actually. If you do the full details, that's what you're actually gonna be doing. If somebody is like a minimum in its 2-hop neighborhood, nobody must be able to outvote him. But I claim it can be made to work. This is the high-level idea. And what you're asking is a very important thing, but it is a second-order detail. But, let's continue on. We can, work it out if we need, if somebody wants to. And using this to find out the round number, you find out who's the least advanced neighbor and you help him. And you repeat everything t log delta times same as before because the claim will be kind of the same. So the analysis works kind of simple. As I said, if you're the minimum in the 2-hop neighborhood, the binary search is set up in such a way that the global network will do it and will spread this information around. It will inform all of its neighbors that it's like super far behind. Everybody will help him. And the rest follows exactly as before. Now we don't have the delta polylog delta knowledge sharing technique. We only have this log n times log delta binary search. And it all works. And you get this multiplicative blowup. Good. And this is actually about it. So the one open question we actually do have is, why do we need the log delta or log n or any one of those? Like, why isn't constant blowup possible? And you would imagine, the question should be easy to answer because you have, when you're constructing a counterexample, a lower bound, you have the power to choose any as timing as possible protocol that's using as much timing as you want, that does whatever you want. But for some reason we were not able to do it. So it's kind of a annoyingly hard question. A surprisingly hard and annoying question. Which you can tackle if you want. I do not think it takes a lot of pre-knowledge to think about it. Like with every case we try to look at, it always turns like there is some very strange, unintuitive way to actually get a constant blowup or whatever, specific thing if you know the network and the adversary has a lot of power. So yeah, how to do it? We don't know. And with this, I'm gonna end the talk and leave some time for questions, and that's it. Or alternatively, we can, if anyone is interested, we can talk offline about all those, facts and black boxes that we used. No questions? Charlie.
So could you give us some details about what's actually going on in the binary search process?
Okay. Sure. There is a lot of details, that's the problem. Let's see, do we have a pen here? No. Go. Fine. Okay. Let me give you a kind of the high level idea. So let's say there is a node that's like the least advanced in its like 2-hop neighborhood. So let's say it's at 10, this is like 15, 20, 25, whatever, 14, 20, 13, doesn't matter. So this is the node, 1-hop neighborhood, and the 2-hop neighborhood. Okay. So all the nodes synchronously enter the binary search technique. This is like based on round timing. Fine. Now you do like the binary search. You want a binary search between 0 and log n. So this is the high level idea. You choose the midpoint, log n over 2 in the original case. And everybody who is more advanced than this will become active. So let's say if the midpoint is like, let's say 15, then this node becomes active, this node becomes active, 15, these two nodes become active. Now you use the decay protocol. And you will learn, is there an active node in your vicinity? And now you do a couple things. If there is an active node in your vicinity and you are not active, you drop out. You never say anything anymore. Fine. If you are active and you receive an active, or you're both active and received an active, and if you're active, then you continue on. So this is the thing. To everyone who matters, we'll do the same branching. So if I'm active and I continue on here, okay, let's put it this way. If I heard anyone who is active, I always branch to the left. Nobody will make the mistake. That's kind of the claim. Because, for who it matters, right? It matters for these guys that they do not make a mistake. Fine, they will not because they will hear from this active node. But the only problem is, what would you call it? Somebody. So let's see what is the problem. The problem would be if let's put it this. I need to remember the details. It was like half a year ago. Oh yeah, okay. So the main claim is, everybody who matters will branch in the same direction. But in order to achieve this, you have to have some kind of a special case that says something like, well, if you're not active and you hear somebody who is active, you must never speak again. And with that, you can make it work. That's a little bit more details, which I hope, is sufficient.
To do this kind of thing, you need to know which one is the maximum, so that you can binary search on the interval of possible values, right? Oh yeah, but that you just use a big timer, right? If it's R, if the timer is, if you're at round R, you know that you're between R over 10 minus log n and R over 10 because of the throttling you use, right? That's about it. Question?
I thought you were just lower bound. I thought you were just saying the throttle had to be greater than R over 10. So couldn't it be between R over 10 and R?
No, I throttle at R over 10. At round R, nobody can advance beyond R over 10.
Oh, nobody can advance beyond R over 10.
That's
throttling.
throttling.
You said no one can advance below R over 10. Alright, that makes much more sense.
That will not work.
Yeah.
What's up? Yes.
What do you do in this picture if you have a node and all of its neighbors are all in the right half of that interval?
You have a node that's, is that on the left or the right?
It's on the right and all of its neighbors are on the right. Then how do you...
Oh, then, nobody is active and everybody goes to the right. So basically, if you hear anybody who is active, you go to the left. If you hear nobody who is active, you go to the right. Does it make sense?
Yeah, I guess I'm struggling to see how you have to do this binary search at all the nodes, right?
Yes.
So are you doing it all at the same time?
Yes, in parallel. And the point is, because, so the main idea is because if you're the minimum in the Tuchel neighborhood, you can kind of hijack the entire neighborhood. Everybody will be helping you. You don't care what these guys do. You just need to convince your neighbors that you are the most important one.
So like someone in the two-hop, maybe like on the two hops away, like the 30, like on the first round of this thing, it's really large, so it's going to drop out right away.
So one more time. So what's the example?
Oh, so like, I'm just giving the example we have here.
Oh, sure.
Like that number 30 is really large. So in the first round of this binary search, 30 is going to realize that all its neighbors are smaller, or and none of them are active, and it's going to drop out.
No, it's going to go to the. It's going to go.
So if none of its neighbors are active and it's not active, it drops out, right?
So all of its neighbors. No. It goes to the right. If it's not active and some of his neighbor is active, then it drops out.
Oh, okay. What do you mean by go to the right?
Oh, to the right, as nobody is lower than this threshold. Everybody is more advanced than this.
Okay.
That's what I mean. Going to the right is like the binary search.
Yeah,
go up
I'm just
option.
trying to figure out how that vertex at number 30 will ever find out who the minimum is.
It doesn't need to. He will not find
Okay,
out.
so that's right.
So the claim is following. If you're the minimum in the two-hop neighborhood, then everybody's going to help you. This one is not the minimum in the two-hop neighborhood. No claim about it.
Well, but doesn't it have to help the minimum?
No, only the one in the one neighborhood have to help. He must not mess up the one neighborhood. That's actually the claim for that. Good. I'm glad.
All right, let's thank Goran.
Good questions. Thank you.